And I feel like we pretty much started the episode. So at this point, I'm just going to go and do a quick introduction. So welcome
Sure.
everybody to a new episode of Knowledge Share. Most of you are already familiar with who I am. I am Alessandro. I am the head of content here at Impress. Most of you are also familiar with what Knowledge Share is. For those who aren't, we essentially try to do this once a month, and this being just a quick, friendly chat with industry figures from throughout the industry. This time around, we have Derek. Derek, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name is Derek Lieu. I've been making game trailers for 10 years or so. I think 7 to 8 of those were independent, completely independent. I've done lots and lots of trailers. I almost guarantee you've seen at least one of my trailers. I did a trailer for Firewatch. I helped make the trailer for Half-Life Alyx. I've been doing Among Us trailers for a few years now. I did a story trailer for Psychonauts 2, did trailers for Subnautica, Noita, Spelunky 2, Dead Cells, Stray Gods, the recent Riven remake, lots and lots of stuff.
Cool. So the way this works is we have a few questions that we collected over the past few weeks, and obviously, chat, you're also free to ask as many questions as you want in the chat itself. We'll go through them if we have a bit of time. But I am very much stalling at this point because I closed the questions. Sorry. I'm going to go through the questions there. You already had a chance to take a look at them. You selected a few that you felt you really wanted to answer. Obviously, the first one was introducing yourself a bit. You kind of already did that. So I'm going to move to the next one, and I think it's one that a lot of people have asked, and a lot of people, I don't want to say they don't really get an idea of it, but how long does it take to create a trailer? Because there's a lot of people that come in at the very last minute, and having worked in PR, I've seen this quite a bit, and be like, oh, we need a trailer.
Sure.
So how long does it normally take?
So I usually ask for 4 to 6 weeks. Now, keep in mind that I juggle multiple projects at the same time, usually 2, 3 or so. So 4 to 6 weeks is a good buffer for getting like an outline version, having time to go back and forth with notes and capture and everything. Like I think if I was working on a trailer, like only one trailer at a time, it could be maybe 3 to 4 weeks, but you still want to have that buffer there so then that you can send it out, have people mull on it a little bit, and then come back. So that's a good amount of time. The fastest I've ever done a trailer, which was years ago, I did the trailer for Ooblets in 7 days, but there was very little game at the time, and they had amazing debug tools. And I did the trailer for Quadrilateral Cowboy, which I did in collaboration with Jake Rodkin, formerly of Campo Santo, and Chris Remo and Aaron Yvette. I turned that around in 5 days. So, but I had some help on that because Jake was sort of the overall creative director on that. But generally, I tell people, give me 4 to 6 weeks, which I've talked to other friends, and they feel about the same for like a relatively quick turnaround. I mean, if you send me all the footage, which I don't usually work that way, where you send me all the footage because I capture all the footage my own. Editing is pretty quick, but that's a good healthy schedule, I think. If it gets a little bit longer than that, then that just means I'm spending more time on social media than I should.
Yeah, but I mean, you kind of already touched on it, and I can see some people asking questions as well. But you mentioned, you don't normally work with other people's footage. So what does your workflow normally looks like when you're working on a trailer? And does it change if you're working with an indie game or if you're working with a bigger project, for example?
Sure. The workflow doesn't really change for the size of the project. Like it's essentially the same thing. I start off by talking to the developers, and we talk about what is important about this game, what are the core pillars, what are the things that make it special, and then I play as much of the game as I can. So, and of course I have debug tools if I get stuck and I need to skip past a boss or something like that. So I capture as much of the game as I can. So I might end up with, 5 hours of footage, 10 hours of footage, and then I bring it into Premiere and I break it down by like the visuals and the dialogue if there's dialogue. So then everything gets organized. So say I'm working on a trailer for Among Us. I would take all the shots of doing tasks and have those in one section. I would have all the footage of maybe just crew members walking through halls or something like that. So then everything is really easy to access whenever I need it. And then from that is when I try to figure out the direction of the trailer. And this is based off of the conversations I've had with the developers. So I first need to know, is this an announced trailer? Is this a gameplay trailer? Is this a story trailer? Is this going to be in front of a captive audience for Summer Game Fest or a PC gaming show or something similar to that? Because all those things affect what is going to go into the trailer and what I need to save for later. Other things that can be a factor are just how much of the game is finished. So if it's the announced trailer, then I may be talking to the developers about what needs to be polished up in time for final capture, so then that we have enough footage to go into the trailer. That can happen with games that are very early in development, and we just need to basically triage the parts that will get the most love by the time I need to just do that final footage. Pardon me. And then the first version I send is usually pretty darn rough. It will have maybe a music track and title cards, at the very least, title cards in the sequence explaining, this gameplay mechanic happens here, this thing happens here, and then this is the end montage. If that might not be enough, then I'll put in some placeholder footage from my first pass of capturing the game. And then if that's heading in the right direction, then I'll do another pass where I do new capture based off of what I want to happen in each section. And then things always come to light like, oh, this animation took longer to play out than I thought, or less time. So then things get wiggled around. If it was going to be for like a AAA game, it's going to be less likely that I'm going to send a version that's really rough. It depends. Like I worked on Psychonauts 2, which technically a AAA game, but Double Fine's still like a very sort of indie kind of studio. So they have good like rough cut eyes where I can send them a version that's not super duper polished and they can get the gist. Whereas if you're going to send a trailer that's going to go to like bunch of stakeholders who aren't really good at looking at rough cuts and will leave comments like, why does this look unfinished? And you have to say, well, it's a rough cut. It's going to look better later. So you need to send them basically something that looks as polished as possible in those cases. But fortunately for me, I mostly work with indies and I don't have to deal with that sort of work situation, because that can end up with a lot of work that doesn't get seen or just gets thrown away. And I'd rather not do that. And then just as things go along, just like a game, the trailer gets more and more polished, the music gets tighter, the sound effects come in, and the capture looks better, and graphics are added, that sort of thing. That's like a really basic look at what the workflow is.
Yeah, but that's interesting. That's actually it sounds familiar because I was working with with trailer editors when I was doing PR in agency. And a lot of what you said up until now just sounds like the stuff that we used to do, the 4 to 6 weeks and the multiple passes at a trailer. But you also mentioned sending stuff to stakeholders. And I can't say much about it, but we did have a couple of clients that when they received a trailer from one of the people that we worked with, they'd be like, "Why does this look unfinished?" And they struggled a bit with realizing this is a rough cut. This is a draft. You're supposed to tell us what you like and what you don't like. But I'm going to move on. There's a question from the chat that kind of looks like one of the questions that we selected, which was, what are the definitions of each type of trailer and what are the defining features? To that, I do want to ask, what would you define a good trailer as, and what characteristics should it include?
Okay, that's a bunch of questions. I'll start with just the types of trailers. So first, we have your announced trailer, which is basically the absolute minimum you can put into a trailer, but still get the core essence of your game across, whether that's a game mechanic or a story idea. So like Firewatch's idea is you're in a fire lookout tower and you having conversations with another person, and it's a beautiful game in the woods. Like that's the announced trailer, basically. And I mean, all the stuff in that announced trailer is not actually in the game. But if it was a game mechanic like super hot, time moves when you move, and then a bunch of footage of the game being played, and just show that, communicate that, and get out. If it's a gameplay trailer, then yeah, you've got to focus on what is the game loop, what are the core game mechanics, what does this look like when it's being played, what does it feel like when it's being played. And story trailers, I think a lot of times when you have a story trailer for AAA, they tend to just avoid the gameplay, which I don't believe in. I think that you should always show as much gameplay as you can as possible, because I think it's less interesting to just have only cutscenes, because the way the game plays affects whether you want to play that story. So if The Last of Us was a match 3 game, it's not as interesting as if it's a third-person adventure game. So I think it's really important to always show as much gameplay as possible to make that clear. Then, I mean, launch trailer can be whatever you want. People have made animated trailers and live action trailers. Sometimes it's just taking everything that came before and summarizing it into one big piece, so then that this is the evergreen trailer that lives on the store page. I mean, there's trailers for accolades, of course. If you get lots and lots of good reviews, put all those 5 out of 5s and 10 out of 10s in one screen. That's just the victory lap. There are update trailers, which those are for the existing fans who want more stuff. So those can be sort of directed in a different way, because you don't have to reintroduce the basic game mechanics to people who are already playing. And I mean, you could have like 101 trailers, which Square Enix has done these before for like Hitman games, where they just explain how the game works and how there's different ways to solve one situation, which they can be a little bit dry, but they can be done in an interesting way. That's like the super basic part. But so you're asking, what are the characteristics of a good trailer? It needs to show the game and its strengths well and accurately, where people understand what are the 2 or 3 really interesting things about this game. And it needs to be done in a way that when people finish watching the trailer, they remember it. They can then also communicate it to other friends or online. Say, oh, did you see that game where XYZ happens? Like, if you watch the trailer and they're like, what did I just see? Then it's not a good trailer. Of course, it makes you want to play the game. Makes you want to know more about it, even if you don't want to play it right away. Maybe you want to know more. You want to go to their Steam page. You want to read their newsletter, or just whatever it is that's the next step to just learn more about it. It should just help you understand the game. There are a lot of game trailers that you watch it and you maybe have an idea of it, but it might be the wrong sort of perception of it. So of course it should be very clear what the game is. And if you really can do it, then would want the game trailer to be emotionally affecting in some way. Like, it doesn't have to be a trailer that makes you cry or something like that. It could just be the emotion of just excitement, or like, ooh, I want to do that. Like, you should feel something. It shouldn't just be like back of the box bullet points. Okay, there's 16 bosses. There are 12 weapons. There's 8 environments. Like, that's like bullet point dry information. You should watch the trailer and think like, ooh, I want to see the rest of that story. I want to interact with that. I want to go to that place. I want to, just play this game. So, like, really broadly, that's those are the ways that I would define a good trailer.
Cool. There's a couple of notes that a couple of comments that I just wanted to make, and something that I wanted to address in chat. First of all, yes, if you just joined this, this will be recorded. It will eventually be made available on YouTube. It might take a few days, but don't worry if you missed the first part, it'll be there. Second thing, something that Dan said, and something that I was also thinking about, how you would describe this, like how would somebody describe what they just said, what they just saw, is such an important thing, and this applies to all kind of marketing. It applies to, I think it applies to trailers. I think it applies to your graphics. I think that in a sense it applies to your game as well, right? And I think this is such an important thing. But moving on to another question, you did mention the different elements that make up a good trailer. What I wanted to ask you at this point is, what are the worst mistakes that someone could make when they're making a trailer?
Okay. I actually did a whole talk for Game Devs of Color about this, but I will reiterate what I've said. But if you look up Game Devs of Color, Derek Lieu, worst mistakes, you'll find like a summary, and I have a blog post too. But I'll go through pretty quickly. First is trying to make it look like a trailer, which let me explain what that means. I think there are a lot of people out there who go to make their trailer, then they watch maybe a bunch of movie trailers or a bunch of AAA game trailers, and they say, okay, that's what a trailer looks like. It starts with logos, it has a slow cinematic shot in the opening, and then there's a lot of voiceover and lore. I'm like, no, it's like very specific. Those are very specific reasons for those things to be there. So forget about what you think a trailer looks like, with like fades to black, cuts to black, flutter cuts. Those are all like tactical ways of solving a problem within the trailer. They're not actually what a trailer is. A trailer is just a thing that you need that is very short, that sums up a game. So however you can do that, with whatever editing techniques you can achieve that, you could be one shot, then that's a trailer, okay? So big mistake is like just thinking about like the form of a trailer. So you have something that sort of very superficially looks like a trailer, but it doesn't function well as a trailer. Giving a really hard sell is a big mistake, where you're just like being like, yeah, so many amazing features in this thing. These power-ups are so cool. Like whenever there's title cards in a trailer, just think of it this way. Those title cards are you, the marketer, the video editor, the developer, getting in the way of the game. So the way I visualize this is, imagine you're at PAX or a convention and your game's playing on the screen behind you, and someone comes over and is like, oh, what's this game? And then you get in their face and like, oh my God, this is the most amazing game ever. And this blah, 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 all this stuff happens. And you're like, okay, trying to see the game here. So that a hard sell is a big problem. Not concentrating on the hook enough is a really big problem. Actually, related to what the idea of what a trailer is, a lot of people also think, a trailer is just a montage of all the coolest stuff. It's like, but then they put it up and none of it makes sense because it's too random. Like the ideas don't connect from one to the other. It should have a progression of teaching people about the game and then making them excited. Just like when you play the game, there's a tutorial level. There's not like, the first level of Mario isn't, 5-2 or something like that. It's 1-1. We got to learn how to jump and everything like that. So trailers need to educate people about what the game is. And if you're too random, then our brains can't make heads or tails. Like maybe we could figure out like, okay, I think it's third person game. Maybe there's like cover shooting, but now they're doing this. Like what's going on? Because every single game trailer that you watch, it could be anything. People are mixing genres and things all the time. So there could be a game where you get lots of keys and you open doors like a Zelda game, but there could be a game where there's only one key in the entire game. And depending on how you show that, that will help people figure out what kind of game that is. So you have to really help people understand what they're looking at. And then again, so I was saying, not concentrating on the hook enough. So the thing I'm always telling people is like the very, very beginning of the game trailer should help people understand the genre space that you're playing in. Is it point and click adventure game? Is it a fighting game? Is it a tactical game? Is it a puzzle platformer? And then all this part in the middle here, you're explaining why yours is different and special. So this is like the hooky section. And then like at the end here, maybe like put like the bullet points back in the box sort of features. So not concentrating on the hook enough is a big problem. And not establishing genre is another big problem. Bad trailer music is also a big mistake. So a lot of times people just take their track from their game, just put it into the timeline, and that's their trailer music, when that music's just kind of designed to just loop over and over and over and over again. So then your trailer just feels like it doesn't have any momentum because the music wasn't designed to make people sort of get progressively more excited as it goes along, because it wouldn't make sense when you're playing like a puzzle game and the music starts climaxing even though you haven't solved the puzzle yet. So having music that doesn't have a dramatic arc to it is also a big mistake that I see very frequently. Another one, information overload, sort of related to just being bang, 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 is just trying to fit like everything into your trailer. It's like, don't. Just focus on 1 to 3 things that are the most important thing that you want people to know about your game, and just make sure everything plays support for that. So like the new Donkey Kong game that came out recently, that trailer is like, in this game you're Donkey Kong and you smash things. Like that's it. That's like the basic thing. And most of that, like half of that trailer is Donkey Kong smashing things. Everything outside of smashing things are things like, oh, there's these cast of characters, there's these villains, and there's these different environments. But like the most important part of that trailer, and it's really well done, is just like smash, smash, smash. It's hard to say multiple times. You know, you smash the ground, you smash the enemies. And like the key art is also related to that. You just smash in the ground. Like everything is working towards this goal of telling you, in this Donkey Kong game, you smash things. So, you know, that's very focused sort of trailer. It's a good example. Bad title cards is a big mistake, which copywriting is hard, but a lot of times title cards are like really, really kind of basic and make your game sound very generic. So if you say like, you know, an action roguelike deck builder, it's like, okay, well, welcome to the club. I would rather you have your title cards say something that when people read it, they're like, oh, that game, like, or in retrospect. So like Hades, they say roguelike, but they don't just say roguelike, they say a godlike roguelike. So now Hades tagline is a godlike roguelike. That's the only one that you can say that for, as far as I know. If there's another one, I'm sorry, but Hades got it. So that's another problem. And another really, really common one is just no game sound effects. A lot of people just don't have their game sound effects in their trailer. And the reasons I hear are just not sufficient for me. They'll say like, oh, I forgot to turn off the music when I was capturing, so the sound effects were overlapping. And then I just say, so then you capture it again, or you manually put your sound effects in, because your sound effects are a big part of your game feel. So you want to put them in there, and, you know, call your sound effects designer and tell them hi.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. And I was thinking at a couple of these trailers that I saw from. I mean, I've had the chance to work with smaller studios, and what you said just rings through every time. Every time I think about these kind of trailers from people that did it in house. There's another question that I wanted to ask you, and it's kind of like a question that they asked in the chat. But what do you think is the hardest genre to make a trailer for?
Hardest genre to make a trailer for, like really high level, is a game where when the player does something, or they think something, or they're making a decision, and there's no visual on screen that makes it apparent what that is. And the other ones are just games where the camera's like really far away, like a strategy game or a tactical game.
Yeah.
But any game where the player just did something, but you're looking at footage and you're like, what did the player do? I mean, you know, League of Legends, even like Overwatch, where it can get so busy. That's really hard. But any tactical sort of game, visual novels are pretty hard because they're just very static. But like there are ways that games can be made more visual to help you understand what the player is doing. So the example that I like using most is when Firewatch came around, they were designing their dialogue tree system. When they worked on the Walking Dead game, if you watch when there's a dialogue choice and they're playing with gamepad, you see 4 dialogue choices. You have no idea which dialogue choices the player is muddling over. Like, do I do this one, this one? Because just a little progress bar saying, hey, you know, decide, but you have no idea what they're deciding. But in Firewatch, there's always a dialogue option selected that you have to move it around. So when you're watching someone play Firewatch and deciding what to say, you can see if they're deciding between like the snarky response or the angry response or something like that. Like they basically just took the scene from the first Terminator movie where the guy's at the door, he's like, hey, got a dead cat in there or what? And he's deciding, it's like, do I say yes, no, please come later, you know, or F you. So that's like one example of something that can be made visual, but like that is the hardest thing when there's like no animation for this thing that the player's doing. Like deck builder card games, that can be kind of hard. Anything with lots of text, lots of UI, those things can be really tough.
Cool. I wanna go ahead and touch a bit more on that question from the community. There's one member of the chat that is saying they're working on a horror game that contains alternate reality. You can probably see the question is right below who me GIF. Do you have any suggestions for a situation like that, which is a pretty unique situation, I realize, but something that maybe some other people can find themselves into?
Yeah, that one's tough. I feel like maybe something with some title cards or copywriting could help that along. If you have, like, I'm trying to think of an example. Well, I don't know if this is a good example, but like one of the original trailers for the film Soylent Green, like the whole trailer is centered around like, what is the secret of Soylent Green? And I think they say that like a whole lot. And I feel like if you had something like that paired with shots that made it look like you were getting closer to the answer to that, which I don't know what that would look like in your game, but if it's a puzzle game and you see like a door opening or a chest unlocking or something like that, then maybe that could imply that you're working towards this thing that this trailer has as a motif of like this question. Maybe that's just top of my head. But like in any trailer, you just need to show, again, player interaction, and some progression of some sort. So if it's like I did trailer for Riven, and Riven's a pretty static game for the most part. I mean, you walk around, but it's a lot of like levers and switches. So if you have a game like that, it's good to show levers being turned, but then doors being opened. So like, okay, I'm getting somewhere by getting this lever, or I solve this puzzle and this thing opened, this pathway opened. I'm getting somewhere, and then coupled with the music, maybe it feels like a montage from a film or something like that, where a mystery is being solved.
Yeah. As we were well, let's try that again. As we were talking about it, I was actually trying to visualize it, and I think it might work. Obviously, I'm not familiar with the game that the chat was talking about, but I think a bit of experimentation, as we say, quite a bit with the blogs here at Impress. Experiment, try different approaches, and see essentially what sticks. We did talk a lot about what makes a good trailer. We talked a lot about how you create trailers. There's a more technical kind of question that I want to ask you, and that's a lot of indie studios, especially smaller ones, when they approach making a trailer, they have to basically work with a limited budget, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of indie studios tend to work at a limited budget. You know that. We all know that. As a ballpark figure, how much would making, like, having the trailer made professionally cost in 2025?
Sure. I think you should expect to spend at least $3,000. I know a lot of people who are charging between like 3 and 5, and then probably fewer like 5 to 10, and then goes past that too. But I think you should think about at least around 3 to 5. I mean, there's certainly people who charge less than that, and this also doesn't count for people who don't know how much they're worth yet, which I know a lot of those people too, and then I yell at them and tell them to charge more because they're worth more. But I know a lot of people I've seen say like, oh, my budget is $200 or $500, and for that you might get someone on Fiverr or Upwork, and you'll get what I think is generally going to be like a really sort of boilerplate trailer that's much more bullet points back of the box, like I mentioned. So title card and then this, and title card and this, and sort of fancy editing and a graphic at the end. But I don't think that you'll get something that can really really depict the game well. I mean, it depends on your game too. If your game's like super visual, then maybe that's all you need. But the more that you spend, I think that the less you'll have to do, hopefully, because at the lower prices, maybe you'll have to capture all the footage yourself. They're not going to do it on their own. Again, doesn't account for people who are undervaluing themselves or just getting started and saying, "I don't know how much to charge. I'll charge $200." And I'm like, oh, God, just at least give yourself minimum wage, please. But so yeah, the more experienced, the more expensive it's going to be, the more hands off you can be, the more confident you can be, which my business teacher would always say, like, when you're spending more money, you're buying confidence in the result getting done well. But 3 to 5 is a good range to start, I would say. 5 to 10, I think they definitely know what they're doing, especially because they also knew to charge at least 5 to 10. And then way past that, then you're in very good hands, I would hope. The ballpark. But I think it's much harder to say, like, what does a $3,000 trailer look like? What does a $5,000? What does a $10,000 trailer look like? Because, like, it doesn't mean that, like, at $20,000 you have like more graphics, because if the trailer doesn't need more graphics, then there shouldn't be graphics in it. It's no one size fits all sort of format there. I mean, maybe like the sound mix will be better or something like that, some other technical qualities. But that said, I think there is a sort of look to $500, maybe under $1,000, but definitely 500 and below, where it'll just be like, title card, gameplay, and montage, and we're done. And because they're working on such a small budget, they're probably either not very experienced or they're following a formula to make their projects go faster. So it's going to be very template-y, I would think.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm thinking obviously different fields, but I'm thinking marketing as well. There's a lot of people that tend to undercharge, and then maybe they're working on like multiple things at the same time, or they're just using a formula. There was a question from Dan that I think is pretty topical, and I'd like to get a bit more into, which is, what can devs do to make your work a bit easier? You already talked about the debugging tools, but is there anything else?
I mean, debug tools are a big part of it. That's why I have 3 blog posts on my website. One was my first GDC talk about debug options, because I realized I've been playing all these games, seeing everyone's debug tools, seeing the different keys that they hide them behind. I'm like, hey, I'm in a weird position that I know all this. I should just aggregate this all and say, hey, do this. So debug tools to help us skip to any part of the game or any sort of scenario that happens in the game. Like if it's a puzzle game, I need to be able to skip to when the puzzle's already solved. Or I need to just be able to like respawn an enemy because this one shot, I'm just trying to kill this one enemy and I don't have to reload the entire game just to get back to this part of the level. I worked on Dead Cells and I could just like thumbstick click and find a menu, respawn like a zombie or something like that, and it made it so fast to just do take after take. Whereas I worked on games where it took minutes to get back to where I was, which that can add up really quick. So debug options to save time, get to different parts of the level. Camera tools also help a lot. I'm not like an expert in knowing what those things, what are the really good things in there, but I do have a post on my website that I talk to other capture people for some suggestions. But good debug options are good. I mean, if you have, frankly, if you have a marketing person on your team, that always helps, because I can always tell when someone comes to me with a project, they give me the email and they tell me like, oh, here are our pillars. This is what we want to cover. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, you have a marketing person. Like, they don't even have to say it. I can read it and I'm like, oh, they have a marketing person. Okay, good. Whereas I've had calls where we get on the call and I say, so what's your game about? And I just get like blank stares. And they're like, yeah, that's a really good question. I'm like, okay, you should work on that. And then come back to me afterwards. Get a little groundwork there. I'll help as much as I can, of course, but I have had times where like, you should really work on that. Like, it's really important. Okay. Let me see, debug options. I don't know, making sure that the music can be turned off in the game when I get it. Sometimes that option hasn't been added in yet. It's a really small specific one, but just all the debug options. And well, here's the other one: is I did a YouTube video about how to like wire up debug options using a Stream Deck, which I did with my friend Steve, who worked on the Rogue Prince of Persia and many other games. But there's some games where like there are like a lot of debug hotkeys, or maybe there's like a console or something like that. So then you can type in those things, and that can let you wire it up to a Stream Deck and like, oh, let's go to this level. Ooh, let's load this weapon. And like that's like really, especially if I'm going to work on a trailer for like a really long time or multiple trailers, then this can be super duper helpful. Like I did trailer for Skin Deep recently, the new Blendo game, which is coming out soon. And that one, I had like everything wired up here. And I even, for some shots, like the opening shot, I always needed like 5 or 6 items just to start a shot. So I wired it all up in Stream Deck. So I just hit one button. It's like spawn. I'm like, great. Bullets, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going. And it saves so much time. But that's more high-end sort of request. Just make sure it's easy to skip around.
Yeah. And I can speak for the marketing part. I mean, debug tools are great, even if you just have somebody that is doing, I don't know, social media content, for example. It's obviously like it's a whole different thing, but even just capturing, I don't know, the right GIF, especially now that a lot of games tend to spend quite a bit of time on TikTok. If you have those tools, and I'm speaking from unfortunately from a place of experience, but I had to reload a scene multiple times. It just makes your life so much easier.
It's a different use case than just debugging the game. It's like really specific, and when they're really good, then just everything flows, and it's a really pleasant work experience.
Okay, let me see if there's anything else that the chat wanted to talk about. What is this kind of ties into one that we said we will be talking about if we had the time. The question from the chat is, what is your ideal balance between cinematic and in-game action? The question that we were talking about is, do you change the style and focus of the trailer depending on, well, I mean, we kind of already touched on it, but depending on the use, no, sorry, that's not the one. It's how do you feel about the shift to include animation in game trailers? So if you want to spend a bit of time on that and just give us your thoughts.
I think animation, it's really risky. When it works, it works. It works best, of course, when it's really used as a victory lap. So, Vampire Survivors, like, whoa, we have marketing budget now. There's this amazing animated trailer for this like really pixely game, and then it can be very like not quite wish fulfillment, but it can be exciting for existing players. Like, oh my god, like this is what we're doing in real life, not real life, but in the game. Or if it's for a sequel, so like Slay the Spire 2, their announced trailer was an animated trailer. Obviously, Slay the Spire 2 is magnificently successful game and huge fan base, so it's real fan service way to like, oh, this is what the characters look like in this really cool animated version. It's also really risky when the animation doesn't look a lot like the game. So if it's all this animation, but then it's pixel art, that it's very abstracted. So it can be like a or even cinematics. Like there's that Aliens sort of tactical game. I forget what the subtitle was, but the trailer, like it was like cinematic, and it was still successful. But like this whole cinematic feels like an apology for this gameplay being not a first-person shooter or something like that. So I feel like that just show that this cinematic here to me feels like lack of confidence, which is it can be like a rug pull for the people who like, ooh, this is gonna be a cinematic Aliens game. What tactical game? And then the tactical fans be like, are you embarrassed of us? Is this how you treat us? You need to dress up our gameplay with this. So when it works, it works. But I would say do it if you're already successful generally.
Yeah.
Or if like it matches your gameplay really well and you have the gameplay that can basically cash the check that you're writing at the beginning with your animation. So I would say, use with caution. And if you're announcing your game and it's this, don't make it an animated trailer if it's a completely new like game world. Like Slay the Spire 2 sequel, great, no problem. Splunky 2, they could have done it too. But if it's totally new, no one's ever heard of your studio, your game, or anything, what's stopping people from thinking it's just a show that you're announcing, not a game?
Yeah.
And it's also hard because, of course, you can't actually help people understand which parts are game mechanics and which aren't. I mean, there's some ways that maybe you could hint it, but they'll never know for sure. And you just never want that turn when they see the gameplay to be like, oh, you want them to be like, ooh, this looks cool. Like, yeah, that looks cool. Cult of the Lamb, I think worked well because the animation it's not like super duper far from the graphical style, but also it's Devolver, so they have their own existing fan base there, so it's less risky from that standpoint. Because Devolver does do animated trailers for announcements here and there, but most people are not Devolver Digital, so be very cautious. And it's very expensive. It's very, very expensive to do a 2D animated trailer. Better probably to hire someone to just do your regular trailers and maybe do your entire campaign for the cost of one animated trailer. Who knows?
Yeah, this was a few years ago, but I remember with one of the clients that I was working with, that we got some quotes, and I don't know if I'm wrong, but I think the quotes were around like 50K for an animated trailer, 25 to 50K for an animated trailer.
The like
something like
ballpark figure I've heard is like $1,000 per second for 2D.
Yeah.
Which then I posted it on YouTube and be like, that's so expensive. I've know people who do it for like $5 a second. And I'm like, okay, sweatshop conditions for them, I guess.
Yeah. One last question, then we're going to leave we're going to give the chat a couple of minutes just to ask our final questions. But this is something that we asked for every episode. You probably saw other people answer this, and you did mark it as something that you wanted to spend a bit of money, not money. Thank you, Brain. Time on. What would you say to somebody that wants to start as a trailer editor in 2025 in the current conditions in the current industry?
Sure. Well, it depends on if you want to be like in-house editor at an agency or development studio. I mean, for that one, you have to be on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, that's where they post those things. You need to be on LinkedIn. But for any of these indie or AAA trailers, just make fan trailers. Okay, start making fan trailers, and if you can, also post your like behind the scenes about making a trailer. So you can make a video about it, you can make a blog post about it, because if it's you up against 5 other applicants, everyone's portfolios look kind of like about the same. Maybe they all have fan trailers, but one person has a bunch of blog posts explaining how they did their trailer, their thinking behind it. And that's like one more layer that the clients have about you and know about you, because we can't get into your brain from looking at the trailer. I mean, we can do only so much, but if you have something where you're sharing your knowledge that says something about you also, that you would share your knowledge or write about this, it shows a certain amount of like diligence, but it helps give the person hiring some more confidence that they know this person better. So that's a big way to stand out, I think. But for like indies, find a game that maybe the trailer's not very good, but maybe it's not out yet and they have a demo. Get the demo, make a trailer for it using that. And then, tag them on Blue Sky, tag them on Twitter, depending on where they are. Send it to them in an email saying, hey, I loved your game so much, and I made this fan trailer for it. And then expect nothing, okay? Like, don't be like, hey, want to hire me? Want to spend? Don't do that. Just enjoy the things. Like, love a game that so much you want to make a trailer for it, and then do that. Give it to them. show appreciation. You got out what you all got out of it, because the experience of making it is what you get when you're not getting paid for it. And then move on to the next thing and just repeat. And if you're trying to go like freelance or independent, then don't quit your day job. Keep living with your parents for longer or something. And then, the thing for the agencies and studios and publishers, those jobs don't come up super duper often. So you just have to have your ears open and just be on LinkedIn. Go to the on LinkedIn. Well, so LinkedIn has a group called Bins and Bytes, which is run by, totally blank on his name now. Anyway, he's from Crytek. But Bins and Bytes is a pro group. So if you're not already in the industry, you can't join it. But they do post job listings, which I don't know if you can see those if you're not in the group, to be completely honest. But they post game trailer related job listings whenever they come up. But be on LinkedIn, follow the agencies that you want to work for. Go to goldentrailer.com, look at their directory list for game trailer places, and follow the publishers, and follow like marketing manager people, and that should be your feed. Those are the people hiring for these things. Brand manager, there's all sorts of different names. But for indies, it's hard. Make fan trailers, tag people, be appreciative, don't expect anything in return.
Yeah. To that, I want to add, having been the hiring manager for creative people at an agency, just going to events is an easy way for people to remember you. Even if you don't have a huge portfolio yet, just go to events and talk to people. Just be nice about it, I guess, as well.
Yeah, and on your social media, make sure your bio has like game trailer editor or something like that, and puts a link to your portfolio. It's always drives me crazy when there's no link to the portfolio. I once put a call out on LinkedIn for a storyboard artist, which project ended up fizzling. But I got so many projects because the storyboard industry is in crisis right now because of AI and the entertainment industry in general. But so many people, I'm not going to dig for your profile portfolio link when I have like dozens of other people who made it really easy on me. And even within those, sometimes on the website, I'm like, okay, how do I get to the storyboards though? So just, you have to make it easy for the person on the other end by letting them know who you are, how to find you, how to contact you, what your work is. And I mean, that puts you above the bar, to be completely honest. So it's a pretty low bar in many ways.
Yeah. Dan just shared in chat, put a link to your portfolio and make it easy to contact you. I think making it easy to contact you should just be a mantra for everybody in any creative position in any industry whatsoever. And I've got the chance to work with influencers sometimes, and it's just there's a lot of very talented content creators that just don't have any contact information, which kind of makes me mad. But we do have a bit of time left. Chat, if you want to share a few more questions. I saw another one.
I saw one about if the idea of a good trailer has changed now that there's TikTok and other things, which I don't think so. I think a good trailer is still a good trailer, and TikTok is TikTok. I'm not changing my trailers because TikTok exists. It's still a 60 to 90 second video made to sum up this game to another person, and that means that it's still needs to do certain things at a certain pace or certain expectation. Like if I edited a trailer like as a TikTok, people would hate the trailer, I think, unless it was sort of tying into the brand or the design of the game somehow to have it look like a TikTok. But I don't think that like, oh my God, my job has totally changed because of TikTok or YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. It's still about the same. Like, Jeff Keighley doesn't want your trailer for the Game Awards to look like a TikTok, so you're fine in that case.
Yeah, and to that, I want to add being on the other side is don't post your trailers on TikTok. They just don't work. Don't post it 1 minute. Like
the best story I heard about that was Xalavier Nelson from Strange Scaffold. I know his trailer editor, who's Gary J. Kings, very good trailer editor. he did an experiment where I think it was for El Paso Elsewhere. So Zalavier posted trailer for El Paso Elsewhere on TikTok, and it got like, I don't know, 500 views. And then he did another video where he said, filming on his phone, "Hey guys, let's check out the trailer for El Paso Elsewhere." And he's like playing it on a monitor behind him. Sound is really terrible. He's just like there the entire time watching the trailer. We're not watching his phone, and the trailer's playing behind him. 2,500 views, like five times the number of views, by making the experience basically worse. But it's more authentic, is why it worked it well.
Yeah, that's kind of the key for TikTok. I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be polished. It just needs to be genuine.
If it's too polished, then it looks like an ad. That's the issue, basically.
Yeah. There was another one that I saw. Okay, yeah. This one is from Dan, but I think it kind of ties into what we talked about up until now. And there was kind of another question that we selected and then didn't quite make it into the final list. But Dan asks, what are your measures of success for a game trailer? And to that, I do want to ask, since we do have a bit of time, what do you think are some of the best indie game trailers that you saw recently?
Sure. I mean, success is if I go into the comments and people are excited and like, "Oh, this looks really cool," or maybe like I did a trailer for Noita for its 1.0 release, and a lot of comments like, "Oh my god, this is totally what Noita is playing. Like, did they just film me playing?" I'm like, "Great, perfect." Like that tells me that I got the experience across correctly and it felt authentic and real. So that's good. I mean, of course, if you see buzz in other places as like from that focal point of this trailer, that's good. I mean, developers have wish list graphs and stuff, so that can be a thing. But actually, I know a trailer is really taking off when it gets posted on like a third-party consoles YouTube channel, like PlayStation channel or Xbox channel, and then it gets hundreds of thousands of views, or even anything past 100,000 and more, for me at least. That's usually a sign of success to me, because that means that it got caught up in the YouTube algorithm somehow, because like enough people were watching it. So I did a trailer recently for let me find it. Trailer for this game called Deliver at All Costs, which is like a game where it's kind of like old school GTA sort of style game where you're going on missions and they're kind of really wacky. But in this game, everything in the world is destructible. So that trailer, like right now, that's at over 500,000 views, which for me, like that's really high, because usually a lot of times like trailer comes out and it's like tens of thousands of views, but like anything in the hundreds of thousands is usually like, okay, people really like this trailer, they're sharing it, or whatever it took to get this really going. So that is something that doesn't happen terribly often. Trailer I did for Stray Gods also got a lot of views, pardon me, which I know they did a lot of good promotion too for that, but for indies, like hundreds of thousands of views is pretty rare. So that's a good sign of success.
Yeah. From the PR side of it, I can say, and you'll confirm it or deny it, but I can say I know I have a good trailer in my hands when, well, first of all, people come to me and ask me if they can repost it. And the second thing is, the moment I pitch it to IGN, it ends up on the actual IGN channel and not on Games Trailers. That's
nice.
That's when you know, okay, this one is a good one. Yeah, we do have a bit of time. Couple more minutes. Oh right. Sorry, I got some sound just started out of nowhere. There was another question that caught my attention about accessibility, and I kind of want to ask you that because I'm big on accessibility myself. How would you show off accessibility features in a trailer, since they're not, almost immediate?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that one. So they have sign language interpreters. I mean, I would hesitate to have it just be in the main trailer unless that's like a really core part of the game's design, because then people could get the wrong idea. Be like, oh, do I need to know sign language to play this game? Some studios make like accessible versions of their trailers, but that's usually like a really big company. So like Ubisoft, they have the ones where they have the voice description of the trailers. But I think that like and some people do like a sort of overview of their accessibility features, so you can make a specific trailer for that. It kind of depends on your audience, but that's a tough one because you want to make sure again that people are thinking about like the main parts of the game in that trailer, which probably not the accessibility features. But if you think of it as like an add-on or not an update, but because it's not an update, but you could just make a separate trailer, or you can put it in places where the people who would care about those particular accessibility features would be. I don't know. That's a tough one. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was thinking about it myself, again from a different perspective. But when I got the chance to work on games that had accessibility features, we either pitch them differently, like separately, or just as you were suggesting, the specific asset for them.
Something else, I would also contact accessibility advocates and influencers.
Yeah.
And talk to them, ask them, or see if they'll work with you or something like that, because people are watching them and they find out about accessibility in certain games through them. So that could be another thing to think about.
I think since we'd had as one of the guests, I think talking to Jaws, Tafka is a great idea for this one. I think she's still around on the Discord, so if you do have questions about accessibility, it might be a good chance to just send a message. I can see a couple of people still typing in chat. Derek, do you have a bit of time for a couple more questions?
Yeah, sure.
Or are you...
I can do a little bit more.
Okay, cool. Okay, that was Willow Flame.
Sorry, you asked for recent game trailers that were good. So I made a small list.
Yes, right.
The Long Gone wishlist teaser trailer, that was really good. That also got hundreds of thousands of views. But that's like a pixel art point and click adventure game, but for zombies. Like it looks kind of like The Last of Us. Like it looks so much like The Last of Us. Like they changed the character design of the main character, from what I heard. There's a trailer for the game Die in the Dungeon that was made by the trailer is my friend Gary. That's I forget. It's a pixely art game, but Gary always does a really good job of like zooming into just like the right spots, so then that you understand how the game works. Which he also just, I assume, did the trailer for Creepy Redneck Dinosaur Mansion 3 release date trailer, which also does a good job of just pointing your eyes where they need to be, so then you understand how the game works, because that game, as far as I can tell, has like dialogue trees, but it's also a match 3 game, and that's pretty tough. Hades 2 early access launch trailer is really good. I did an entire blog post about that. That's made by my friend Sean Finney. That's a really good example of a trailer that prioritizes like the most game-changing parts of the game, and then the stuff at the end are the like sort of nice to have things. So like the very beginning, of course, we're talking about new character, and then because everyone's going to play this new character. Whereas like then when we move further along, it's like, okay, different weapons or different magic types. People are going to choose different specs, and this is like turns into like a tree branching off basically. And then by the end, you have things like pets and romance or something like that, where maybe not everyone's going to interact with that feature, so it's not really something that you want to put at the beginning. But that's a really good trailer. The content warning trailer, when that came out, that was really good. It's really hard always to have like real player voiceover in trailers, and that one felt really natural. I think a lot of it was just because of the way the game works, where you're supposed to be like an influencer, so that worked really well. I liked also the Keep Driving reveal trailer was really good. I did like a little consultation on that, or I don't think I actually did a consultation. I think I just talked to them at some point, but that's a really good trailer. That's also helped by the fact that it's about a road trip. And when you have a real life thing in your game, that is a lot of work for you as far as helping people understand what the game is, because people will be looking for the things that they expect from this real life thing, like a road trip where you have to go to a gas station and buy food or something like that. I really liked the announced trailer for Date Everything, the visual novel where you can date like a TV or something. I had a really good song. That was fun. So those are a few.
I think I actually played that one. This sounds very familiar. I might have actually played it.
Keep
But
Driving
yeah,
also had really good music too, so that helped.
I can see Jonas typing something. I'm gonna wait to see if that's a question. Otherwise, if it's not, I think we can start wrapping things up. But okay, no, then I. Why do I remember playing it? Did they have a demo? Am I mixing it with something else? I'm probably mixing it. I don't know. But on that note, thank you for joining us, Derek.
Yes,
Thanks everybody for joining us for the chat. If you do want to know a bit more about trailers, Derek has a website that you can go to with a blog and a lot of very informative content. You can find it here. You can also follow him on Blue Sky. You can follow me on Blue Sky if you want to see what I'm up to and if you want to check out the occasional marketing and PR tips. Do follow Ashley on Blue Sky as well for Impress related stuff. As I said, this one will be made available on YouTube in a couple of days. We just need to edit it and put it together. We will have another one of these next month. I'm not going to be hosting it. I think unless things change, Dan is actually going to host the next one. I don't want to tell you too much about it, but it is going to be an interesting one. We'll be announcing it and promoting it on the Discord in the next couple of weeks. For anything else, we're always available. I think, Derek, you're probably going to stick around in the Discord as well if anybody wants to ask you any questions about trailers. Well, you don't have to, but you're more than welcome to. Yeah, do check out what we work on. Do check out the Impress free marketing tools on our website. And for anything else, just feel free to ping us.
And if you have any other questions about trailers, I mean, really just go to Google and type in Derek Lieu and your question or the genre or whatever, and it's really likely I've answered it. To be frank, I did a newsletter for like 7 years every single week. 7 years? I always forget how long it was, but I have a lot of blog posts. Some of them I've even forgotten that I wrote.
Cool. Okay, cool. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Have a good rest of the day and see you soon. Bye.
Right. Thanks for having me.